I had a coin flip's chance of making it back to my wife and my daughters. Given me all the treatments that they could. They gave me the last one. My vitals were all still getting worse, to the point that my doctor, my hematologist who was heading up the team, told my parents that there's nothing else we can do and you should get ready to say goodbye.
You are watching the Heavy Metal Therapist podcast, and today I'm joined by my good friend Jared. Jared, how are you doing, man?
John, I'm great. I'm glad to see you again. We've taken a run at this, but this is round 2, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, there was technical issues with the first one, but yeah, dude, I'm just grateful that I get to have another conversation with you, to be honest. So,
likewise, man.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll dive right into your crazy story, and we'll go from there.
Totally. So my name is Jared Maynard. I am a physiotherapist in the Great White North of Canada. I am also a powerlifter and a strength coach. I am working sort of non-traditionally in the strength and the rehab spaces. I used to be a physical therapist in the traditional like sports medicine clinics. Now I work entirely online with people all over the world, helping them get stronger, overcome injuries, and get out of pain, and live life the way that they want to. And I'm tag teaming it with my wonderful, amazing wife and my 3 little girls who keep me on my toes. And I'm also a writer, a speaker, an educator, especially in the rehab space. Love me some metal music, and that's part of how we connected. So that's me.
First of all, it's amazing that you get the opportunity to work with your wife and your kids. That must be incredible, and just so different from like personal training and
100%. And that came around just on that part in particular. Like it goes back to when COVID hit everybody, and my clinic had closed. This would have been March of 2020, and we had our 2 twins who were at that point 2 years old, and my wife was pregnant with our third, who was due in May of 2020, and my clinic was closed. I'm the sole provider of a young family, self-employed, and I needed to figure something out. And there was a lot of pressure to try to figure that out. And in addition to the pressure, on a more positive note, there was a pull towards wanting to be at home more, because working in the clinic, even though it was a really good clinic, I enjoyed being there late meant that I got home at 9:30 at night, and my daughters were already asleep. So I wanted to, find a way to be able to still help people and follow my calling that way, and also provide for the family, obviously, and then have more time with them. And by God's grace, here we are. I was commenting, my wife is homeschooling our kids this year, and just commenting to somebody else how amazing it was to be in my office in the basement and hear my daughter yell, I'm done English," and to know that I can go up there and give them hugs, and they can come down and get hugs when they need to. So grateful for it.
That's amazing. So just on a practical note, because I'm sure everyone has the same question that I do right now, how does it work doing it from home? Like, because obviously, it's like it can be a very physical thing. Is it more of a coaching? Talk us through it. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's more of a coaching vibe. Like, the way that I describe it is, obviously I can't reach my hands through the computer, but the beautiful thing is, if you were my client or my patient and we were in the physical clinic, how I would treat you and how we'd work together there isn't all that different from how I work here, with the exception of like the physical touch. But the great news is, based on research and based on just what we find in practice, that if you're in pain, if you're trying to get stronger, if you're trying to move better, there's a lot that we can do that doesn't require us to be physically in the same room. And yeah, really going through it myself as a client of another physical therapist when I was dealing with my own injury is part of what helped me to see, oh, that's how you can do that. And that started me on this trajectory, which has been incredible because quite literally, I get to work with people from around the world, UK, Canada, US, Finland, Australia, the UAE, working with folks who want to get stronger. Some want to compete in powerlifting. Some want to be strong enough to play with their kids and grandkids. And it works really, really well, at least for the way that I approach it with my folks.
That's incredible because you've gone from this like, so you've gone from like working in one solitary place with just the people in your local area, and having this constraint of like you coming home very late, you're not really spending that time with your kids, to being able to work with people all around the world and basically, like you said, do exactly what you've been doing, but just like online rather than in
Yeah.
physical. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's been a blessing for sure.
I think one of the things that really drew me to you was, I think you commented on one of my videos and I was like, "Oh, I always get curious about the little blue ticks." And I'm like,
Yeah.
what stood out was just like your pinned post about your story.
Mm.
And like when I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, do you want to talk us through your journey and just kind of like what those pin posts look like, and yeah, just talk us
Yeah.
through what you, yeah.
So if we go back in time, almost just over a year ago, sorry, not a year ago, uh, around this time, early January of 2023, I had started to feel sick. Nothing too crazy. It's cold and flu season. My wife and daughters had the same sort of thing, but a week later, when they were better, I was now getting worse. And then began this process over the next few weeks of having some more symptoms than the usual cold and flu. I had the fatigue, the malaise, I had some sinus pressures. I started to not be able to sleep. First time experiencing insomnia. Went to my family doctor, got checked out. We thought it was a sinus infection, got some antibiotics and a nasal spray, went back home. Nothing's improving though, and I'm starting to get worse at this point. So my lymph nodes in my neck and shoulders, you know those topographical maps that you can run your fingers over the mountain ranges? That's what my neck and my shoulders felt like, with my lymph nodes swollen that much. And again, not sleeping much at all. Um, and we went to a small hospital because we live out in the sticks, in the countryside, and they diagnosed me as having mononucleosis, which instantly took me back to high school and my friends teasing me, Jared's got mono. I never had mono. My friends were just jerks. No, I say that with love. Um, but I'd never had it, nor had my wife. So I had no idea how I had that. But apparently I did. And they gave me a sleeping medication and sent me on my way. It was 3 days later at about 5 a.m. with me sitting at the kitchen table, slumped over, and my wife was there too. Another night where I hadn't slept. And she's looking at me and she says, "You're yellow." And we both think, oh, this is not good. So then we made the calls to get my mom to come watch our daughters. This was the day before my twins' 5th birthday. And we rushed to a further hospital, but a larger one, because we knew that we needed more people, more resources to figure out what the heck is going on, because this is bad. My liver is shutting down. As a physiotherapist, I know that if my skin is yellow, that's jaundice and something bad is happening to my liver. I've been active for the majority of my life at this point. I grew up as a fat kid with no self-confidence because I kept being reminded by the other kids at school of how fat I was, and picked last or second last for sports at recess in a gym class. And then when my parents tried different sports, nothing stuck until we tried Kung Fu. And it could have been because I grew up watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and I wanted to be the Red Ranger. But that was the first environment where I really felt welcomed, and it was empowering to now suddenly have the means to take care of myself and to be surrounded by people who wanted me there as opposed to those who didn't. So that's relevant because that was the catalyst that then started me on the path of trying other sports. So it was then American football, and then it was for football leading into my senior year. The coaches had one rule, which was we're going to do some fitness testing at the end of this school year, and when you come back for summer camp, if you're better, you get to play. They didn't care by how much. They just wanted to know that you cared enough about the season that you trained. So that's when I picked up weights in my parents' basement. Once football was finished, I kept training because I needed something to do since we weren't practicing anymore. And that turned into training for bodybuilding, and then turned into training for powerlifting. And I'm still a competitive powerlifter and a powerlifting coach myself. So all of these years, 18, 19 years now, so closer to 16, 17 at the time, I've been used to having a strong feeling body and being able to trust it to do some really cool things. But now in the parking lot of the hospital, with the entrance to the emergency room was about 20 or 30 feet away. And I really didn't know if I was going to be able to finish walking through those doors or if I was going to pass out and be too weak in the middle of it. When I did get in there, my heart rate was around 200 beats per minute. My blood pressure was spiked. And when I talked to the next nurse, I told her I was about to pass out, and I very nearly did. So then begins this 6-day, very splotchy memory of the mad dash that was my body shutting down and all of the medical personnel trying to figure out why. And my wife told me, and she's there with me before she had to head back home, that the scariest moment of her life was seeing me lying in that emergency room bed on oxygen. Her big, strong husband, stands 6 feet, was 194 pounds at the time, who was so weak and so incapacitated that he couldn't get up and go to the bathroom by himself. So my memory is splotchy because I was starting to be delirious here at this point in time. And over the course of these tests and images, we finally land on a diagnosis called HLH, which stands for hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. It's a hyperinflammatory syndrome. You can think of it as autoimmune-ish, but it's not a true autoimmune disease. But whether it's genetic or whether it's triggered by something else, like a cancer, a different autoimmune disease, or in my case, a viral infection, it causes the immune system to get ramped so high that it turns into this storm where the immune cells start attacking healthy cells, especially red blood cells. And depending on the source that you're looking at, the mortality rate is anywhere from 50 to 75%.
So is 25 to 50% chance of you actually surviving.
Yeah.
And I know that no one else heard the first time round we had this conversation. But what was it? One of the most incredible things that you told me that I'll let you tell everyone, but it was about your the fact that your body mass. Do you want to explain that bit? Yeah.
Absolutely. So through those 6 days where the doctors and nurses and the team were trying to figure out why my body was failing and why I was on this critical, nosedive as far as my vitals were concerned. Landed on the diagnosis, but I was still getting worse to the point where they needed to put me on life support 6 days after I was admitted to the hospital. And HLH, because of how it works, it ravages the body. It shuts down organs, liver, kidneys, spleen, and others. So on life support, I was heavily sedated. You can think of it as a medically induced coma. I was on a ventilator to help me breathe. I had dialysis because my kidneys had failed and they weren't cleaning my blood. My liver had shut down. And yeah, like you said, even with treatment, which includes chemotherapy, which is brutal, and corticosteroids and other drugs, and then trying to manage the infections that you get from just being so sick in a hospital for so long. Even with that, at best, I had a coin flip's chance of making it back to my wife and my daughters. So I was on life support for 5 weeks. And through that time, my medical team did everything that they could to try to help me. They made the decisions day by day based on how much of the chemo that my body could handle, which wasn't as much as I was supposed to get. That's the trouble with being so sick and needing something as aggressive as chemo. You know, the thing you need to survive is also really rough. And it got to the point where they had given me all the treatments that they could. They gave me the last one. My vitals were all still getting worse, to the point that my doctor, my hematologist who was heading up the team, told my parents that there's nothing else we can do and you should get ready to say goodbye, and we're going to start talking about palliative options. I can't tell you all of what happened at this point afterwards because I was unconscious at the time. But I can tell you that there was a lot of prayer being offered by a lot of people all over the place. And I started to stabilize when I shouldn't have. After, preparations were starting to be made to talk about end of life stuff, I started to stabilize. And by no means was I healthy. When I woke up in the hospital, in the ICU, I went in again weighing about 194 pounds. And I woke up feeling like I was in somebody else's body entirely. I was skin and bones. I weighed about 150 pounds. And that difference, the 40 pounds of muscle, matters because on life support, while they tried to give me nutrition through a tube from my nose down to my stomach, there was so much inflammation from the HLH that my body couldn't absorb the nutrition. So all of that muscle that I built, starting with Kung Fu and then football, and then lifting weights for football, and then lifting weights for bodybuilding and powerlifting and all of those endeavors, my body had to use that muscle as fuel to survive. And it bought me time.
It is so wild. So it's like, you go from being the kid that's like left out of the playground and do you say playground here? I don't know.
Yeah.
In Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. Recess, whatever. I don't know.
All the same deal.
Yeah. So you go from being like the kid that's like left out and you being the fat kid to, I'm going to make life changes. And I think it's one of those things, isn't it? That like the idea of going to the gym is great. But I also think there's like having a goal, is a better, like it's better for motivation. Like for you, it was like getting better at American football, like keeping up fitness during the off season. And, but then you kind of, you find that obsession with like, I want to get stronger, I want to get fitter, and powerlifting literally saved your powerlifting literally saved your life, essentially.
Yeah, it absolutely helped. And with as I started the recovery journey in the ICU, like we're talking about rebuilding from ground zero, because I couldn't walk, I couldn't speak because the ventilator had to shift from down my throat to through my throat through a trach. Um, and then, like any other muscle group in your body, if you spend 5 weeks not using a muscle, like I wasn't when I wasn't eating or swallowing, all of my throat musculature and my esophagus started to atrophy and get weaker. So I couldn't speak because of the trach. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't, if my life depended on it, I couldn't get out of bed. So it was beginning really at square one and trying to relearn all of those things. And slowly, very slowly through that process, which felt like, a step forward and 3 steps back and 1.5 steps forward and 2 backwards. The physical therapists, the doctors, the nurses, many of whom had seen me at my worst and then were with me as I started to recover, said that all of the strength and the muscle and the fitness that I built on the front end was responsible for buying me time and also for allowing me to recover as quickly as I did, because muscle memory, most of us have heard about that. There's truth to it.
You've survived, and then there's a long, like it sounds like there was a long, road to recovery. And like, were they
Yeah.
expecting you to completely recover, or?
Yeah. No one could say. With my team, I can't say enough amazing things about them, and I'm very grateful for them. And especially my hematologist who led the whole team. She consulted with specialists elsewhere because HLH is a rare disease. There's not a whole heck of a lot known about it, especially in comparison to other diseases. So no one could really tell me, hey, for you in this specific case, we expect you to get this far in your recovery this fast, which meant that, like, being a healthcare provider myself was a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing because I could understand what was going on. We could have conversations with the medical jargon and I could understand it. The curse was understanding how dire the situation was and how tall the mountaintop seemed to be, with no guarantees of getting there or how long it would take. So in what I've been saying is that it was at once a singular decision that I had to make, realizing that I wasn't dead here, and that even without any guarantees of how well I would recover or how fast we would get there, I wasn't dead yet, which meant I wasn't done yet. And if there's a hope that I can get back home to my wife and to my daughters, I was going to do it and do what it took. I made that decision once, but then I had to keep making it day by day, especially on the really difficult days where the nausea from the chemo just made it so I'd throw up every time I got up, or when my body was still rebelling actively and I'd spike a fever and I had no idea why. And the being so homesick and isolated made me need antidepressants for the first time in my life. And there were some really heavy days where, like, I straight up just didn't get up. I didn't do my rehab exercises. I felt defeated that day. And I decided that's okay. I'm getting up tomorrow. And I did. And that was the process, brick by brick.
Yeah. And because that takes the mental, like, strength to, like, push through and have that determination that you're not gonna give up. What was your biggest drive? Was it your family and getting home to them?
For me, it was, yeah. And excuse me. And I realized that, for people listening to this, wherever you are in your life, I hope you're not going through like a medical crisis. if you are, I'm with you. And I also recognize that not everybody has a family to motivate them to push through, or not everybody has a family that makes them want to engage or push or that sort of thing. And if that resonates for anybody listening right now, I just want you to hear, like, that's okay. And I don't know what you're going through. I just believe that it is good that you're here, and it's better that you're here. And if there's one thing that, as John and I talk through this stuff, I hope that it does for you, is just make you realize that you're not alone with this stuff. And just one day at a time. Like, you don't have to be a soldier every day. I don't think you can be, or I don't think most of us can be. And it's okay to have those days. Like, it's okay to not get up. Just get up when you can.
It's kind of like having the motivation when you feel like you've got none, and
Yeah.
just finding something to hang on to, even if that is the fact that you survived every single day that life has thrown at you so far.
Mm-hmm.
And like, who's to say that the top of your mountain is just a couple of days away or a couple of, weeks away, and you just got to keep going and not give up on it.
Yeah. And I'd like to know what you think about this too, because as I've thought about my journey, and I've shared this story, and particularly thought about what how to say it, for the people who are like, cool, dude, you got a really intense story, I'm glad you made it, but I don't have a wife and 3 kids to make me want to push. So like, what is there in this for me? What I've landed on so far is that sometimes when you're in the midst of it and you're hopeless and you're exhausted and you're tired of being tired and in pain, and no one can give you a guarantee that it's going to get better or how fast, and it's feeling crushing and overwhelming, I think sometimes being able to borrow somebody else's belief, even for a little bit, can help. Is that something you've run into, or what do you think about that?
No, I 100% agree. I say all the time that, like, our brain is just so amazing and stupid at the same time. Like,
Right.
what you feed your brain is what you believe. And so when it's like having that motivation of like, my life is pointless, your brain will get to that point where it believes that it's pointless. And so I think that the main thing is having, even if you don't believe it, is just having something maybe written down that's like, my goal is to survive. What you feed your brain is essentially what your brain connects with. And it's like, we're actually, as humans, we're built very negatively. And so it's a case of like tricking your brain into, there is something better around the corner. And if you really believe that there is if you just keep saying there is something better around the corner, eventually you will, I hate the word manifest it, but it's essentially what happens. Your brain takes it in, and your brain starts to believe what you tell it. And so, yeah, I think our brains are very clever and very dumb at the same time.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I found that to be true in terms of you attract what you focus on, which, for us saying this, it might sound simple. And if you're in the midst of something, like, it might feel very far away or like difficult to do. And that's fair. My vocal teacher had shared this with me recently. In her opinion, happiness is an act of the will. And like we said at the start of the show, like, I love me some heavier music. I'm especially a core kid, so people can feel what they want about metalcore. But
wearing a bleeding through t-shirt, the kings of metalcore right there. Yeah. So
there you go. So with that, like, Casey, my coach, she encouraged me, hey, look, when you're really feeling heavy and I want to put on my heavy or like sad boy music, which I find very cathartic and very helpful, she encouraged me to also intentionally put on the happiest music that you can think of. And for her, that's a lot of country. And I've started to play with that. And I do find that it helps. It doesn't mean that like the problems or the things that I'm thinking about or worrying about go away. It doesn't solve everything, but it does help to sort of balance me out even temporarily, which I find really helpful for how I show up.
Yeah. So let's dive into that, because so you got a vocal coach. What are you? Is there a band on the way for you? Is that the game plan? Like,
Could be. My coach Casey Clanton would absolutely love it. She wants me to start doing some gigs or open mics, and I'm open to it. But I sought her out because like I've loved singing since I was, a kid, and never had any training. I've been told I had a decent voice, and I had performed in a couple of talent shows and a coffee house in the past. Um, and two things put me over the threshold. One was I was tired of thinking about what if. Like I've got an okay voice, but what happens? What if I really learn how to use it? What if I really learn what singing's about? And then the other piece is that we were kind of touching on it before we recorded, but I've shared this HLH, catastrophe, and then the beginning of the recovery journey for me. There's also, I've got a genetic eye condition that's progressive and degenerative, and there's no cure for it currently. It's called choroideremia, and it leads to blindness. So I've known about that. I've known something was wrong since I was a kid, and I've had that specific diagnosis since I was about 19 or 20. That was my gateway into first understanding what grief was really, because suddenly the no pun intended, but the vision for my life was now shattered, and I struggled with what this is genetic. I didn't do anything to deserve this, did I? Why God? Why me? And wrestling with the grief and the sorrow therein. So I bring that up because choroideremia usually has a slow progression up until middle age, and then it speeds up. After HLH, even though these two equally rare medical conditions had nothing to do with each other, the HLH seems to have clearly sped up the progression of my eye condition. So how does that tie into singing, Jared? Well, it ties into singing because over the last year and a half to 2 years, I've really had to wrestle with this thing that I have no control over. Again, I can't control how fast my eyesight is degrading. I'm legally blind now. I have been for over a year at this point. I'm having to adapt and to learn how to get around with a cane. And I applied to and got accepted to a guide dog school, which is great, but also a mixed bag, and for different reasons. So with all of that, like, faith plays a really big role in my life, and increasingly so as time goes on. And I'm aware of God challenging me to trust, because if I try to fight and control, there's 0 point. I can't control these things. So it's requiring me to trust and adapt and be willing to change what the next trajectory of my career might be. And it ties into singing because I really feel called to a lot more speaking, both here in contexts like podcasts, but also public speaking, getting on stages. And I feel drawn to that. And it's terrifying because it requires being seen to a greater degree, and being seen as different, which has extra weight because if anybody has experience using like a long white cane for visual impairments, its strength is that it makes sure other people notice you, and that's also the psychological and emotional weight of, oh, you are different now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's I was just thinking that actually it's interesting that every season of your life you seem to have adapted. It's gone from being like the fat kid to uh was it Taekwondo, did you say? Or
Kung Fu. Yeah.
Kung Fu, yeah, sorry, yeah. Uh,
Good.
to Kung Fu, to American football,
Mm-hmm.
to like bodybuilding and powerlifting.
Yep.
And then it's kind of like there's been this shift from that into the coaching and actually
Mm-hmm.
doing it. And then it's the dropping the in-person coaching to online.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, now now your site's going. It's like,
Yep.
what do I do? Because you need to be able to see your clients and be able to
Yeah.
physically help them, and you need to be able to make sure their form's right and what they're doing is right. And
Yep.
so if anyone has the right to complain, Jared, I think it's you, man. But you seem really like positive and upbeat, and like that I don't know, it just feels like you're enjoying life, and
Mm-hmm.
despite what's going on, like you're still pushing forward. Like,
I really appreciate you saying that, man. And I'm I'm trying. Uh, my wife could tell you I'm naturally, if people are familiar with like the temperaments as far as personality types, she would say I'm very melancholic. Um, so like there's it's easy for me to be weighed down and overwhelmed, and I won't pretend to you or anybody else that that doesn't happen. Still, like it absolutely does. And um, being here, like being able to talk to you right now, being able to wake up each day, and even though I can't see the way I used to, and the way that a big chunk of my heart still really wants to, um, I get to see something. I get to see my wife. I get to hear my kids laughing and playing. I'm still, I don't have to be here. And there was a really good chance that I wasn't going to be here, but, but I am. And I believe that's for a purpose. And, maybe not everybody believes in God or is of the same perspective. And that's fair enough. I do think though that we can create meaning if we so choose. And um, I got the tattoo of the Latin phrase Memento Mori on my forearm after HLH, which is a Stoic phrase, which means remember you must die. And it can sound morbid, and it's meant to be an exhortation that like each one of us will leave this planet at some point. And we don't know when, and it's meant to just bring us to the importance of the moment. And not that we have to be perfect, I don't think. I just think it's good for us to make the most of what we have, um, and just trying to find for me it's trying to find a lot more appreciation for the little moments and the little blessings that are easy to pass over. So yeah.
so I've got two final questions for you. One's just a complete out of left field curveball.
Okay.
What is your favorite metal or metalcore or like hardcore? Like, what's your favorite band, or like what's your go to at the moment? Because I know people
Yeah.
chop and change, and
This is like picking favorite children. Um, Got to give a big shout out to Architects, because they they were a gateway band, especially with their song Doomsday. Um, so they get a shout out. The band that you covered, because I commented on one of your posts, Polaris. Um, man, love their stuff. And then two others real quick: Spirit Box, which I know you've covered as well, and good old Kill Switch Engage.
fantastic. What a stacked lineup. Yeah, imagine that as a gig. That would be pretty. That would be pretty epic.
Dude, what a
Yeah.
show.
And so I guess a final question I have for you is one that I'd like for you to share with everyone else. So, like I said before, I feel you are the one person that has such room to complain about everything in life. And for someone that like might be, maybe not gone through half as much as you've gone through, but feels this just desperation to give up, what would you say to that person, and what has been a good motivation for you to keep going, if like outside of your family, and like what? Yeah.
What I'd say to that person right now is, I don't believe that you're done yet. And what I mean is, like, not this rah macho, like, keep grinding, brother, kind of deal. I think that you're only really done when you choose to stop showing up, even if what you're showing up for or what you're working towards changes. I think that you're only done when you choose to stop trying to adapt and grow, and when you stop trying to become the person that trying to become the person that you want to be. And I believe that if you're going through something and it feels like everything's crashing down around you, or you're broken or you're weak, I believe that you can come back stronger. And stronger doesn't always mean physically stronger. I believe that it can sometimes. But I also believe that coming back stronger can also mean learning to live with and handle grief and still getting up and moving forward. I think it can mean learning to live with something that's not going away, or to let go of something that's not coming back for you. And I also believe that it can mean getting to the point where you accept that your vision for what life was supposed to be may not be the case, and to keep moving forward anyway. I won't guarantee that it'll be easy. I won't guarantee that it'll be simple. I won't guarantee that it won't be painful. But I do believe that you're not, I do believe that you can come back stronger, and that it is better that you are here. And I don't believe that you're done yet.
Dude, I flipping love that. I can see why you're about to become a speaker, man. That is, yeah, that was, whew, I feel that.
I appreciate that. I'm glad it landed.
Yeah, but Jared, I just want to thank you so much for your time. I'm aware that it's been a bit of a journey for us both getting this podcast done, but I feel we're finally there. We've finally done it, and I just really appreciate your journey with me, and I appreciate you sharing your journey with my people, and hopefully some of my people will become your people too. And
absolutely.
But yeah, dude, it's been amazing, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show at some point. And,
I'd love to, man.
Yeah,
yeah.
And
then
you
can John, for the time.
Come and tell us about your new metalcore band that you're starting, because you've had enough vocal coaching. Yeah,
man, I'm working on my cleans. I gotta hit up my coach and tell her I gotta work on my harshes next.
Yeah, that's it. Amazing. Cool. All right, dude, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely, John. Thank you, man. And love to do it again sometime.